Hello, everybody. So today we are going to talk about the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine was a U.S. policy of opposing European colonialism in the Americas. The plan was created in 1823 by Secretary of State John Quincy Adams. The plan stated that Europe should not interfere in affairs within the United States or the development of other countries in the Western Hemisphere. So who were the individuals involved? Monroe Doctrine involves Secretary of State John Quincy Adams and President James Monroe. For many years, European countries had been involved in conflicts with France and what are known as the Napoleonic Wars. During those wars, Spain began losing money and thus could not continue its control over its territory in the Americas. Because of this, they were forced to give up their land in the Americas. However, in the early 1820s, Europeans began showing signs of wanting to conquer the Latin American countries. Monroe and Adams became concerned about the Russian threat in Oregon Country. They had built a military fort known as Fort Ross. This was their way of extending their influence in the territory. The U.S. also faced threats from Australia and France. Monroe and Adams also became concerned that Spain and its ally France would attempt to reconquer the Latin American republics that had gained independence during the Napoleonic Wars. The British were also concerned because they did not want to lose their new markets in South America. The British proposed that they and the U.S. jointly guarantee the sovereignty of the new Latin American states. Monroe and Adams did not want to be seen acting in the shadows of the British, so they proposed their own plan in 1823.
Same night, in his White House study, President Monroe took the fighting stand of Clay and the American people. With John Quincy Adams, he prepared an ultimatum to foreign aggressors that will live forever in the hearts of his countrymen.
I think we have it now, John.
Good. Let me hear it.
The occasion has been judged proper for asserting as a principle in which the rights and interests of the United States are involved, that the American continents, by the free and independent condition which they have assumed and maintained, are henceforth not to be considered as subjects for future colonization by any European power.
Splendid, James, splendid.
Monroe Doctrine became the centerpiece for U.S. foreign policy. It involved four major points. First, the U.S. would not interfere in the internal affairs of Europe or the wars between the European powers. Second, the U.S. recognized and would not interfere with existing colonies and dependencies in the Western Hemisphere. Third, the Western Hemisphere was closed to future colonialization. Fourth, any attempt by European power to oppress or control any nation in the Western Hemisphere would be viewed as a hostile act against the United States.
Secret council.
It's this man Clay who is most dangerous to our cause. If President Monroe listens to him, then the United States will fight to keep us out of the Americas. And Austria, for one, will not agree to war. My country will take every means to safeguard her American colonies. But beyond that, she will not go.
Then Spain will fight alone and benefit alone.
If she wins, my friend, the United States is fast becoming one of the strong military powers of the world.
What makes you so sure the United States would resort to war? People don't want it. And in a democracy, the people rule. So I've been told.
Clay has many followers. It was he who first advocated recognition of the South American republics.
Yet he and Monroe have never agreed on South American policy. Why should they now?
So what was the significance of the Monroe Doctrine? It established that the U.S. was the defender of the Western Hemisphere. Originally, Europeans saw this as a bluff. They believed that the U.S. lacked the skills and the power to enforce such policy. However, they did not want to take any chances. The European countries abided to the terms of the Monroe Doctrine. None of them colonized the independent Latin American countries. To this day, no European country has colonized any part of the Americas.
Washington, Speaker of the House Henry Clay, fighting champion of American liberty, ringingly challenged the autocratic aims of the European monarchy.
It lies within our power to create a system by which all our sister nations of South America shall act with us. Our present institutions make us free. But how long shall we be free if we allow Europe to gain another foothold in the Western Hemisphere? Let us break all old world fetters. Why should we bow to the whims of European politicians? Let us become real and true Americans, and with our sister nations of the South, build an American system that nothing shall ever destroy.
Americans were in favor of the Monroe Doctrine. Even Henry Clay, who had many differing opinions about South American policy than Monroe, supported it. Circumstances surrounding the Monroe Doctrine were similar to those surrounding the American Revolution in the late 1700s. Similar in that the United States did not want Europeans who were all the way across the Atlantic Ocean to have power in the Americas. Americans had not enjoyed being controlled by the British, and they certainly did not want history to repeat itself. Like during the American Revolution, there was an increased level of nationalism within the United States. The United States did not want Europeans having control in the Western Hemisphere, and clearly their wish came true because of the Monroe Doctrine.